A tall mountain to climb, and the player in the bottom right-hand side for Team Liquid, it is one of the best Terrans in the world, Clem.
What I love about
Do you know
Clem's
whose map
TVP,
this was? Yeah, go on.
most likely Clem, I'd say, right? Berlingrad is pretty decent for Terran, but I did not keep track of that. But I assume it must have been Clem's. What I actually always find impressive when I watch Clem in this matchup is that he is so damn comfortable with almost every single opening that Terran can go for. You know, we can play normal, we can play straight up, we can do a 3-Rex, we can do Hellion drops. Even when it comes to the first unit out of the starport, it really doesn't matter if it's a Liberator Viking or a Medevac. The guy can just kind of do it all, and he can execute at the highest level. And I also truly believe that there is no one better in dropping Widow Mines and burrowing, unburrowing, retargeting than Clem, and that includes all the Korean Terrans. He is ridiculously annoying with those units, and he knows it.
Yeah, his multitasking is out of this world. His awareness is out of this world. And he started here with an eBay block. It has been quickly deflected by ShaDoWn, who will take a Nexus if he wants it at 400, and he does. So a good reaction from ShaDoWn, pulling exactly the amount of probes that he needed at the exact time that he needed them.
Yep. Clem trying to just be annoying, throw his opponent off a little bit, but the man did not make a Zealot, the man did not expand elsewhere, so I don't think that ShaDoWn's build is too messed up at all. Clem is definitely showing a bit of respect here to ShaDoWn by dropping the CC on the high ground. Berlingrad is one of the smaller maps, and you can do weird things like mine out those tiny mineral patches, which can even reduce the travel time of that first adept by a couple of seconds. And then sometimes as a Terran, you're actually going to struggle getting that CC up, getting a bunker up on the low ground. But Clem playing it very safe, and he's going to open up double Reaper, and he's going to follow it up with a couple of extra barracks. I think he knows that I'm watching, because he knows how much I love this build. But this can already be painful for ShaDoWn, because if you just send your first adept to the other side of the map, the double Reaper timing is very different than a single Reaper timing. And if those two Reapers show up completely undetected in his main base, he can end up losing a couple of workers immediately. And if that happens, I don't want to be too dramatic, but I almost feel that that's game over. You cannot lose 4 or 5 probes in the beginning of the game against Clem.
Indeed, and Clem does have his timing figured out to where he has skipped the vision of this adept and crossing the map. So these Reapers are going to go across unannounced. ShaDoWn even send out a probe, potentially to scout for proxies and the likes that could have intercepted those Reapers, but did not. So this Reaper's now going into the main. There will be a Stalker spawning.
Oh, what's into the wrong direction? Yeah, that's actually really painful. Now we lose mining time. We've already lost 1 probe. We're going to lose 2 probes, 3 probes. It will most likely be 4, and it could very well be 5. This is a disaster, man. You really don't want to have a start like this. Don't make it 6. Cats, come on, 6. Make it stop.
I made it stop. But that is really rough. Wow. Yes, Tim's gonna get started now. Blink for ShaDoWn. How bad is it to lose 6 probes at this stage in the game? I like it. I like this.
I kind of like it too, because playing normal straight up from here on out, I feel like you're almost never going to get the job done, especially not against a 3-Rex opener. Now, this is a 3-Rex opening with a factory, obviously, as a follow-up. Cats, needless to say, it is incredibly bad. Like, losing 6 probes to a Widowmine drop, that already kind of stinks, but that normally hits a solid minute and a half later than these 2 Reapers. So at this point, we lose 6 probes over 30 probe economy. I mean, I don't want to do all the math on stream, but that's a very high percentage, Kaz. Like, over 15% of your economy gone 4 minutes into the game. It's a disaster.
That is an absolute disaster. Now, ShaDoWn is going to be relying on Clem to scout him at some point, see that there isn't a third, and hope that he doesn't attack as a result whilst he continues to get ahead with his third. Clem is a player that can be overly passive when he feels like he is the overdog. Like, for example, in past times when he's played against Bly, he makes those extra bunkers, he takes those extra precautions, and ShaDoWn can be a dangerous player. He can be a player that can do both. He can go macro like he is doing, or he can go on the aggressive. So ShaDoWn's kind of gonna leave it up to Clem to mind trick himself. But yeah, we'll see. How does Clem gather information from here on, Roddy? Oh, there's a Marine.
Yeah, he's gonna send maybe just 1 Marine at a time forward, but at the moment that Clem has Tim, he's not really worried anymore. He is convinced and he can just go ahead and move out because he knows his army is more powerful. It seems that he's a little bit worried about DTs, potentially, because we already have the turret in the natural. We're keeping a couple of units in the main base as well. We know it's not DTs. The Blink Stalker should not be able to accomplish that much, but what you're hoping for here if you're ShaDoWn is just little pickups here and there, and of course keep Clem at home, because you don't want to see all these bio units with Stim run to the other side of the map at this point, because if they do, well, you're in serious trouble, because even with a battery, you're not going to defeat that army. So you just want to keep the forces at home and grab a couple of SCVs while you're at it. So far, so good, but we cannot make any mistakes with this Prism.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty good. That was 3 SCVs. Of course, 4 Stalkers will one-shot workers, so that's a really good move from ShaDoWn. But more than that, he allows for the Marine to scout him, basically, and Clem is good enough that he scouts the both of the third possible locations, and he sees that there is no third. That's a great success for ShaDoWn, because that is exactly what his proxy hidden base is meant to do, basically, right? So Clem right now knows, or thinks he knows, that ShaDoWn is on 2 base, and that most likely in Clem's mind has to mean all in, so maybe he'll contain himself.
Yep, or it also just tells Clem, all right, I don't need to be overly aggressive here because I'm actually outmining you. It's too bad. Please tell me we have a recall somewhere. Okay, we do have a recall. I was actually thinking earlier what would be cool if he would have recalled a bunch of probes towards the hidden base, but I don't hate it for 2 reasons that he didn't. The first one is this scenario. If we want to keep a prism nearby, we need to have a recall available for the prism. And the second scenario is, imagine if you recall 12 probes to your hidden base, but Clem scans you, and he immediately sees an empty mineral line. Well, Clem wasn't born last night. He would know that at that point, something very fishy is up. We do have an Immortal out. The Colossus is actually ready as well. We're going to have to buy some time with Force Seals, but if the batteries finish up, it's very doable for ShaDoWn to actually take a decent trade here. And then with that hidden base, things are really going somewhere. He doesn't need to do this at all, but he is convinced that he can, and he's perhaps right. This is actually starting to look really good for our Protoss.
Yeah, gonna blink on forward one more time. All of that army from Clem is bruised. I don't think ShaDoWn wants to cross the map, just scare Clem away. And Clem, of course, is gonna be fine going back, right? He says, okay, that's fine, that's cool. You deflect me. I was never gonna try to kill you anyway. I have my third at a reasonable timing. In fact, it's probably in some ways ahead of yours, right? So Clem has to be happy with this situation, but he doesn't know about the hidden base.
Nope, and he hasn't checked anything. He hasn't sent an SCV out or a Marine out. We're not sending a drop-up that's going to scout it anytime soon. There are some Widow Mines now. I mean, Clem has to know that something weird is happening to some degree. Because, all right, the Reaper start was great, but was it really that great that now my opponent's just going to stay on 2 bases until, like, the 6:30-minute mark? Was he that worried about my opening? I mean, Clem may believe that he was, but I think deep down inside, Clem should know something a little weird is up, and that's why I think he was worried about DTs earlier, but he was just wrong about that one. There is a solo Marine that's going to see pylons, but not the base.
Yeah, and that is further fortunate for ShaDoWn. He can account for this Marine perhaps, as Clem is going to poke in to see if there's a 4th being taken. There will be a 5th being taken realistically on the side of ShaDoWn, and ShaDoWn does take his Stalker there to get rid of that Marine, which is very smart, because that Marine, you know it's Clem's, you know it's going to stay active, you know it's not going to stay in one place, and it might eventually find your base. So good moves here from ShaDoWn.
Absolutely.
I think that he has really managed to win in the mind games here.
Oh, 100%. Like, if Clem would actually see what we see right now, he'd be like, whoa, I'm in trouble. Like, if he just thinks that the third that he saw is actually the third base, and like, well, you know, sure, it's going to be annoying. I can't kill him immediately, but I'm just going to micro-well in the big fights and then a couple of EMPs, use the Vikings against the Colossus, I'm going to be okay. But ShaDoWn actually has a monstrous economy, 78 probes, and a hidden base that is at this point pretty much fully saturated, besides 3 probes on 1 gas. I would love to see a second robo. There we go. He drops it. I think he could have sneaked that one in a little bit quicker. But yeah, if I don't want to use the cliche, if we're ever going to win a game against Clem, this is it, because he has won plenty before in the past. But this looks pretty promising on paper.
It does. Here's a very scary push from Clem that will cancel well, what he thinks is the 4th for ShaDoWn, really the 5th. And with this, Clem might just be happy enough to turn around and tuck tail and leave here. The important to note is that the hidden base for ShaDoWn has already yielded ShaDoWn enough that he should be happy with his progress. That is to say, even if it gets found, it's kind of already accomplished its goals. It's 9 minutes now, 10 minutes into the game. So ShaDoWn definitely getting all the value out of that already.
Oh, Disruptor's left behind. Clem is going to get another cancel in this base. One Viking does get picked off. You're spot on, but okay, the Disruptors are a little bit too exposed. One of them gets picked off, and the other one barely lives because the force fields were solid. I completely agree with what you said about the hidden base, but if it does get discovered, we do need to save the probes. Like losing the
Oh, yeah.
base, yeah, that's not a big deal. But if we lose the base and 22 probes there as well, or 19 at this point, that'd be problematic. A couple of High Templars have been warped in. The hidden base is now officially found. Is he going to lend some feedbacks, or will just morph them into Archons immediately? Archons it is, and now at this point, Clem finally knows what we know, and he knows that he's really going to have to work for this one.
Yeah, it went right away as Clem was traversing through that part of the map to his camera to see if there was any sort of reaction. There wasn't, so he's keeping his composure and his wits about him. Let's see, he's looking for an engagement. However, maybe he deems this like to be an advantage that has gone on for too long. I'm not sure if he wants to push the issue right now. He is nearly maxed himself, so it might be fine for him to just back away, but he's not going to. And this offers a ShaDoWn an opportunity perhaps to jump into this.
And chasing up the ramp. Chasing up the ramp is hard, and I don't see an observer here, and we obviously don't want to use any Novas to take care of these mines, so these mines actually got a lot of value. The Viking positioning was absolutely perfect. Clem does need this planetary fortress to finish up, though, because without it, he's going to be in a bit of trouble. I mean, Clem was actually the aggressor there while being down in basically every aspect that you could be down. The only thing he had was high ground advantage, and I gotta say he capitalized on that to the fullest, because otherwise that would have been a bad fight, because ShaDoWn's army was bigger and better.
It really looked like it might have been a bad fight. However, only one Colossus involved there, so not enough AoE or consistent AoE perhaps for ShaDoWn to capitalize. But now he's with Disruptors in a very annoying position for Clem, where he is with his back against the wall. There isn't too much room for maneuvering for Clem. However, there's only one Disruptor shot left, and ShaDoWn will have to readjust. All of those Vikings, ShaDoWn would have loved for them to stay landed and to take them down, because he is going back into Colossus production.
Clem's so good with his micro, man. He's so good at darting in and out of range where he's able to fire. The Pros army, not quite. We have, okay, that was a decent ball, but the Widow Mines, I think, are going to fire again in the top right side. Those were the two mines he had on the high ground. Killed 4 probes earlier, killed 6 probes with the second wave. So Clem did manage to take down 10 workers during all of that. And it is honestly fascinating watching Clem control his army against Novas. Because aren't we supposed to panic at least a little bit, Cats? Isn't it like kind of a scary unit? And it always feels that Clem is just kind of chilling. That ball did connect to a decent degree, but he makes it look so easy, and we all know it's not.
Yeah, for sure. ShaDoWn now going after the sure kills in the Widow Mines with those Novas. A good idea for him might be to chase after those ghosts, as they can't stim and move as fast as the other units. So ShaDoWn is going to continue on the siege here. Would you rather him go after this planetary fortress, or maybe just the other side where there isn't a planetary fortress?
Yeah, I think that the Orbital was a much better target, because he still has the bigger army. Maybe he's just kind of waiting for the upgrades to kick in, right? Because +2 attack almost done, +2 armor almost done, and Clem at this point does have to too. But Clem was nowhere near maxed out, and some of the bio was already a little overstimmed. It is hard to catch a Terran off guard, because the sensor towers are obviously keeping tabs on your army. Maybe we're going to try to create some chaos with them Dark Templars. As we do blink forward, I find it always a little bit questionable near a planetary, but if we don't overcommit, it's all right. Good Nova, good pickup on the Liberator, but let's not stick around too long.
Yeah, and this was really nice with the DTs at the same time. That is something that... Oh, huge Nova actually connects onto the center mass of Clem, and now there's a 50 supply difference for ShaDoWn. Just as I was saying that the DTs were being successful, Kev, we have a success on the other side with the army as well.
Well, yesterday we had a Terran upsetting the overwhelming favorite in the Protoss when Milky Cow took down Max Packs. This obviously is far from over. Even this game is not necessarily over yet, but Clem definitely does feel like he's on the ropes, and you can see it in the camera there a little bit, shaking his head after that big Nova connected as he was busy trying to deal with those DTs. This is just a lovely game, man. The hidden base, such an underrated tactic. There is a time and a place for it, but I think this was absolutely a perfect call to do it, because he had such a rough start, and playing a normal straight-up game would have been difficult, so why not make it a bit different? Try to get away with that cheeky hidden base, and look at us now. ShaDoWn maxed out, a lot of money in the bank. This kind of feels like we are waiting for that finishing blow. He's really trying to get the planetary here. I feel like he should have enough DPS.
Oh, he does! And that is absolutely gigantic. If we look at the map, it's purple. I mean, he doesn't need to win this fight. He's going to commit to it regardless. He does have the army to do so. And a lot of these Vikings are going to fall.
Orbital
but
repair.
not before taking down the Colossus. Here would be a good, perhaps, time to retreat. But the Orbital falls. GG is called, and ShaDoWn takes game number 1.
I love how pumped up he is about that one as well after a 16-minute game, and honestly a rough start. Sure, 2 Reapers are not for free, so as a Terran you do want something out of it, but 6 probes is massive. That's what Terran dreams are made of. And at that point, ShaDoWn's like, all right, well, taking a regular third, that's not going to happen. I know that's just going to get cancelled over and over again. So let's see if I can get away with the hidden base. And he actually played really well. I'd also be very fired up. He just took down Clem in the opening match, and he hasn't dropped a series yet in this season. The man is speaking.
Yeah, he really is. And this was this was a comeback against Clem, right? But like also playing off of his reputation, off of the fact that Clem knows that he can be an aggressive, a tricky player. And he was tricky, but he was tricky in a different way. And this is kind of like what I was talking about with ShaDoWn. He knows the tendencies of Clem. He knows how to abuse Clem. And here, he basically abused how good Clem is, right? Because Clem goes and checks for the third with his Marine. He stims it. He checks for the other third. He thinks he's safe. He sits back, and then ShaDoWn just gets an overwhelming advantage and, converts.
Yep, lovely. And I like the way that he played it as well, where it was like Blink into Colossus, because just Blink and Zealots alone for a little while, that probably wouldn't cut it. Clem's micro is too good, and Widow Mines would be too hard to deal with. So he's like, nope, I'm just going to go for that reliable Colossus first. I'll get a much later third. That's actually my fourth base. Defend it with batteries. And once I've got Blink, Charge, and Colossus, that's when I'll plan down the double forge. Because at first, I need units. If I don't have enough units, Clem is just going to run over me. Honestly, very well done, especially given how, in my opinion, poor the start was. Solid stuff. This man can't be too happy with that game. In the bottom left side of Hardwire, now down 0-1, representing Team Liquid. He has been a multiple-time European champion. It is Liquid Clem.
And going Berserk in this match for Berserk Esports, it is ShaDoWn. Heavy underdog, Kev. I like to check the bookies for odds. What do you think the odds were for this match?
I would say that ShaDoWn is a solid 5-1 underdog to win the best of 3, maybe even 8-1. I don't know.
12-1.
Okay, yeah, that is a very big underdog.
Yeah, huge underdog.
But I mean, the last 9 times they've played, Clem has won 8 out of 9 series, and most of them were pretty convincing. Even though the years prior to that, when Clem was absolutely not a bad player, I do think that the true arrival of Clem was like 2019 and especially 2020. But even in 2018, 2017, Clem was already around, was also traveling to some of the international events, and he was a solid top 16, top 32 contender back then. So for ShaDoWn to back then win as many series as he did against Clem, who was already getting good, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, you say those records and they're unsurprising, and they're unsurprising because I think ShaDoWn is like Goblin, who we will see later on today, like the type of player that has very high highs and can peak and has like all this amount of potential in their creativity and the way that they approach and think about the game, but they're not always practicing enough to really make that shine through. And right now we have a ShaDoWn that's been motivated, that had a LAN in France where he was going to meet up with Clem and DNS and the likes and Denver and whatnot. So he has been practicing for that. He has been really putting in the work. And again, I mean, in his style and the way that he plays, I really enjoy watching him play. I think he's one of the very last, and maybe that's an exaggeration, but certainly one of the most creative Protoss left in the scene. And so when he puts in the work, it really shows.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple of not just like little breaks, but actually a big break as well. I believe after one WCS Montreal, he legit straight up quit the game for like 6 months, just tried some other things. But that's the beauty of StarCraft cats. They run away for a while, but they always come back and they always play a few more games. And at this point, obviously, whenever you know the DreamHack is starting, yeah, these guys are all going to do their best, because even if they don't think they're going to win the entire event, every single best of 3 you win is prize money. That is already something that's a lot harder to earn in, let's say, a Monday Cup, where you need to be top 4 or even top 2 to win a similar amount of prize money. And of course, this is a really good way to test yourself, right? You won't just play one matchup. You have multiple matchups to get ready for, even though this one group does have a lot of Protosses. But it's just an exciting time to be a player once you make it into the big leagues. And I think it's impossible not to feel motivated for it.
Yeah, most definitely. 2 probes, however, are not going to be feeling too motivated, as their chances to continue on in this game are going to stop there. As the Stalker does catch the Reaper on its way up, that would have been fatal if that last shot didn't connect.
Yeah, it would have been really annoying, just because then there is a chance that you end up losing one more probe in the main base. But obviously, might have to pull some probes away. And this is all these little things that can make you trip up. And when you play against Clem, you don't want to have any trip ups. Last game, there was like one supply block I noticed that was somewhat painful, but he had multiple pylons on the way, and he was obviously spending his money on some upgrades too, so it wasn't too bad. But you want to make sure that you keep those to the minimum when you play against Clem, because you know that Clem doesn't get supply blocked very often.
Yeah, definitely not. You don't want to rely on Clem to make any mechanical mistakes, really. If anything, he is going to be forcing them out of you. And here we see potentially one, but the Locon doesn't prevail there.
So this is an interesting build, right, by Clem, as he went for the 1 barracks factory and now 2 extra barracks. We like to call this the Ryong, because Ryong found so much success with this build at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice, where he really exceeded all expectations we had for him. We knew he was good. We didn't think he would have such a big run in the biggest tournament of the year. But this is actually going to give ShaDoWn a lot of time, because I don't think that Clem wants to move out before he even has medevacs. But at this point, there is no starport, so maybe he won't wait for that. But whatever it is, like ShaDoWn has Blink done, is not in any danger of losing probes on his side of the map, has a Robo Bay finishing up, has the 3rd Nexus done. This actually, on paper, if you would hide the names, be like, well, this looks really good for the Protoss. It's very difficult for the Terran to get a lot done. So Clem is really going to have to work hard in this game too. Otherwise, we could kick today off with an absolute monstrous upset.
Yeah, and I think that this is Clem perhaps doing overly safety, right? Like maybe accounting for ShaDoWn wanting to close out the series with a cheese or something of the like.
Yeah.
Because he gets a single tank. I mean, like I was expecting maybe multiple tank production and then like some sort of a push before medevacs, like you were saying perhaps. But instead we just see 1 tank for defense that sits in the main, and even a turret very early on from Clem, right? A Clem that's not getting upgrades, so just gets the eBay for the turret.
Yep, it's the 2nd game in a row where Clem gets a turret where he really does not need a turret. It's not the biggest investment, of course, but it takes away some momentum if you want it to be more aggressive. I honestly think Clem read this as the guy is going to 4-gate Blink Stalker attack me. He's going to stay on 2 bases for a little while. So all I need to do is make sure I don't make any big slip-ups at home. And if he doesn't do that, well, then it must be DTs, because there is no way he's just doing the very standard macro-oriented straight into Colossus. But that is actually the one that's happening. Clem is by no means down and out, because he does have a big army, a powerful army, and he can make magic happen with it. But in the next, give or take 90 seconds, Clem needs a W, Cats. He needs a W somewhere, whether it's in the fight or worker damage, because if he doesn't get anything done in the next minute and a half, well, then I don't know how he's going to win this game, because ShaDoWn is just going to explode and get way bigger than Clem will be in the longest time.
It's going to be increasingly difficult to watch for these few Marauders and the tank to go and kind of get on top of those Colossus, because, I mean, that is a lot of AoE already that ShaDoWn has. Like you said, he took a very early 3rd, and he has, I think, the tools to take this fight. Guardian Shield will be available. No additional force fields, however, and Clem is backing away, which I don't think he can afford to do.
No, but I also don't think he can afford to lose the army. Like, if he would take a fight and he would actually lose the fight, he definitely loses the game, because then he will never be able to bring it back. I don't think Clem is happy with this position at all. Okay, that is a little bit adventurous, ShaDoWn, as he donates 2 Stalkers, perhaps 3 Stalkers. Clem is going to siege up his tank. Oh, ShaDoWn getting a little overeager there. There was absolutely no need for him to make that blink. Maybe getting a bit excited, where he's like, is this happening? Am I about to 2-0 Clem here? But it's not going to be that easy, amigo.
Yeah, absolutely not. And he really just wanted that tank, right? He's not really looking for an engagement. He's just kind of shepherding Clem back to his side of the map while he takes a 4th, while he added double forge, while he's adding a Templar Archives. So ShaDoWn very much looking for the transition into the later stages of this game, and he is in prime position to do that, but he's going to have to replace a few Stalkers now.
Yep. Would not hate a few observers. We've got 2 at the moment, and they're pretty sweet spots. But I wouldn't even mind an extra one, because one way that Clem always finds his way back is a bit of an exaggeration as well, because it's not like Clem is down and out, hasn't lost too many units, but this game has just been economically in favor of ShaDoWn. And then he's not working with basic units. No, he actually went into the robo units. So a Protoss with an eco advantage and actually going for powerful, strong, high HP units. That can be problematic, and that's why Clem is going to try to maybe find an opening with the double drop, but it's going to fly straight over the first pile. And we are losing a couple of SCVs as well to just random Zealots, but they are annoying, and they are keeping Clem back even longer.
Yeah, and I am a sucker for the underdog stories. This game is looking very good. ShaDoWn had already set up a perimeter. If we look at the blue on the map, obviously these 2 pylons are going to get taken down. But that is the price for not getting for not getting surprised basically in your main from 2 medevacs that could very well depower all of your structures and whatnot with that many Marauders.
And imagine if you don't have a recall available, you might just lose a bit more than even a couple of pylons. You might lose a handful of probes as well, and then suddenly that little advantage you've been working with is done. That's not the case. The man is still looking mighty fine on 4 bases. He's going to set up another Zealot run-by. Clem does have a winner mine on the left side to spot for those run-bys. He knows that they are coming. First disruptors are out. Clem can really not afford to eat a big Nova to the face here. He needs to make sure that his micro is as good as we know it can be. He feels that this is his moment to go for it already. Gets a lot of shots off. Bit early there with the Novas, if you ask me. And also firing 2 at a time is not great for ShaDoWn, but he did kill 11 SCVs. So maybe he was a little more focused on that. There could be a battery overcharge here, though. I would definitely use it if Clem gets even more aggressive.
Yeah, there is a well-placed battery there that ShaDoWn already had, so I'm with you. I don't think that he needed to use both Novas. I think one is fine if he felt like his Colossus was exposed, but the second one seemed unnecessary because those are the only 2 disruptors that he's working with. Regardless, Clem is going to back away, and he's going to concede a disadvantage to ShaDoWn for the time being. However, ShaDoWn, that is, hasn't been as good as Clem at keeping up with the upgrades, despite working with that double forge and obviously the chrono boost that Protoss has available. So he is only just keeping up with upgrades.
Yeah, his forges were a little bit late because he went into all the bases and the quick Colossus, and I think we can get away with it. It was a bit similar to the previous game. Now even fires +1 air weapons up already, as he is getting ready for potentially some ultra late game, feeling that Clem may never attack. As the observers showed us, War Prism did go down. That was a prism in the main base. Tried to make it into the top left side of Clem's main, but there was a missile turret, there was a cyclone, so that prism got taken out. And that's obviously good news for Clem, because Clem does not want to deal with 10 Zealots in his main at this point.
Yeah, he will have to deal with 10 Zealots here at the 4th base. The Planetary Fortress will be ready, however, in time to where the Zealots are going to be deflected all by their own, all on their own. However, on the other side, ShaDoWn has taken a scary position.
Oh!
It's huge! That is a massive connection. However, without the rest of those shots, Clem is going to look for a fight, but maybe that looked better than or worse than it was for Clem, because I mean he's still nearly maxed.
No, it was a big shot, Kat. So your reaction was definitely not misplaced there, because it was a big shot. Clem was obviously a bit worried too. You could see it in the camera. His face just lit up, started shaking his head a little bit later on. But Clem did a very good job, at least in the follow-up, chasing a couple of units out. But that was a big Nova, and Clem knows that those things could snowball real quick. Because if another Nova like that lands, then the rest of the army could very well get jumped on. And then Clem is in all sorts of trouble. ShaDoWn here with an ambitious forward blink. The man has been a bit reckless with his Stalkers, but I guess he's a rich Protoss, and then it's somewhat okay to be a little bit reckless, but we don't want to do that too often.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if there was another disruptor available there for ShaDoWn, he could have pressed the issue. Because I felt like after that big of a Nova, maybe he could push on forward, but Clem identifies that there's no more Novas available, and actually he's the one to push the army away. And as soon as he sees ShaDoWn is willing to retreat, he loads his entire army and punches back right away. So Clem, not nearly out of this game.
No.
Great decision making there in the face of trouble.
You know what would have also been sick for ShaDoWn if he still had that Prism that he lost earlier. Because imagine you land a Nova like that. Then I actually think you can take the fight. Whether you have extra Novas available or not. As 2 goals go down to 1 Nova. 1 more Nova is going to try to zone away the bio. How many disruptors do we have on the battlefield? I see only 3. And 2 of them have already fired. There is 1 in the back that could fire. But Clem's control here is very good. And ShaDoWn needs to make up his mind when he finally wants to fight.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to at some point. That last Nova not really connecting with anything, but he has already lost all of his Colossus, being shepherded back by those Vikings, which now are landing to provide extra assistance to the ground army of Clem. It's a close fight. I don't think that ShaDoWn is in a position to chase away from his shield batteries. The overcharge is gonna have to come in handy. At the same time, he is doing a lot of damage with those DTs on the other side.
Yep, the DTs found their way not into just 1 but 2 mineral lines, and they now could have swiped off the sensor tower and the missile turret there as well. An observer does get picked off. Clem still feels that he should keep pushing, but he needs to be a little bit careful because his army is starting to become a little bit overstimmed. The medevacs are low on HP. The DTs are still around. I don't think they can win that fight in the 3rd. As 3 Marauders and a Cyclone is just a little too much to handle for those guys. Clem still wants more, lands an EMP on a couple of Stalkers, takes out a pylon. But I kind of think it's time to go home for Clem. Like, he did a great job there, but eventually you want to go home. You don't want to lose all these goals and these Marauders because your medevacs are low on HP and low on energy.
Yeah, not enough energy even to heal the units as they stand, and they're already in the yellow. However, Clem's gonna find an opening here via a scan where he sees that the army of ShaDoWn is misplaced and will take down a Nexus. With that, Clem's gonna go up a base as compared to ShaDoWn. So now it's ShaDoWn that's gonna be looking for the army win as opposed to the economic victory here.
Yeah. Actually, really sick that by Clem, right? We look at that army, we look at the medevacs, we're like, Clem, mate, like the army is here as well. He's keeping tabs on you. I think it's time to go home. Clem just stays around a little bit longer, pretends that he goes to the left, then turns around, goes back to the right, and takes out the Nexus one more time. And then he was okay and happy to go home. Now the rest of the units have joined up with that main army that's still in the mix. There are so many goals, 11 goals in total. It's hard to micro against Disruptors, but of course, absolutely fantastic against the Stalkers and the Archons.
Yeah, ShaDoWn keeping things close as far as the economy is concerned by harassing that 5th base with his Blink DTs. He has to be a little bit careful, but now has a pretty good number of Disruptors. So Clem might want to look into Liberators to zone those out. And the first Liberator now does get fired up. So that's going to be really important. I'm not sure that he wants to continue to take on these fights.
No, especially now the battery overcharge is active and it is activated at the moment. If I was Clem, I would just disengage for a little bit, lands a couple of decent EMPs, but the army is pretty overstimmed and he has a lot of medevacs, but they're all very low on HP. ShaDoWn feels that this is the moment to just fully go for it. A nice mix of Zealots and Stalkers, the Immortals putting in some work. It's a really sick performance by ShaDoWn so far today.
Yeah, really insane there. Even not following through with the rest of the Disruptors. I thought if the Disruptors were at least moving with the army, that this was a little bit more warranted because it would have kept Clem on the run. But even without those Disruptors, I mean, the Blink, it looked so risky to me, but it was good.
There's only one observer on the map. It's all the way on the right side. ShaDoWn is now going to bring that observer with his main army. Afraid that maybe there are some Widow mines nearby. I don't think there are too many mines left behind. Clem is up a little bit in supply, but a lot of his army is still a bit better than Bruce from the previous fight. Especially some of these medevacs are very low on HP. Clem sets up the concave. He wants to go for it. How many Novas are available as extra Archons come in from the top? This seems like a pretty sick fight for ShaDoWn.
Yeah, especially if those Archons are not EMP'd, and I don't think that there is much of an EMP remaining here. ShaDoWn pushes on through. The supply is now even and now slightly favoring ShaDoWn. While pushing back Clem, those medevacs not really at their dead supply at this point, Brody.
Yep, there were 8 or 10 medevacs before that fight, and a lot of them were already low on energy. Clem does save the orbital, which is very important. He has a couple of backup orbitals, but not too many. Clem throws down a scan as he feels that maybe it's his time to chase his army, but there are so many Novas, and it's really hard to chase an army that has multiple disruptor shots ready to go. Man, I almost thought ShaDoWn had it there. At first, I was like, man, he's walking into a trap, but he did such a good job with those flanking units from the top. The Archons and the DTs, they really made a big difference. Still landed some Novas, and Clem is in trouble, man. Clem cannot fight the army of ShaDoWn at this point.
Yeah, so ShaDoWn wants to corner Clem. Right out in the open, the Novas are not going to connect. You can always run back, but if you are having to defend your base, then there's no space to run back, and that's where the Novas can have their choice, or even the rest of the army can have their choice to kill SCVs instead, or to kill the CC, and you're forced to defend. You're forced to attack onto those Novas. So ShaDoWn knows that, and he's going to continue to posture here as he is maxed out.
Yep. The macro is maybe a little bit sloppy on the side of ShaDoWn because we did get +1 air weapons, right, a long time ago. Never really used that. There are 17 probes on the mineral line where we only need 10. Only a single gas was taken because maybe he doesn't feel like he needs extra gas, but it could all be a little bit cleaner. But what he is doing absolutely fantastically is the army movement, the army position. There is a run by, I think, of DTs and Zealots as well into the third, but that one is very well protected with the Liberator and a couple of bio units. But one Nova is kind of all it takes. As Clem, I think, stepped forward there a little bit too far. ShaDoWn realizes that, and he feels that it is time to fight. As the EMPs are big, the Novas, can they connect? First one misses. Nice Stalker. It just feels there's so much Protoss here.
Yeah, but there's a lot of Terran too, and I don't think that there's any Novas remaining. One! Oh, it's massive, Roddy! And with that, ShaDoWn's gonna be able to turn around and blink onto Clem. However, the Archons are kind of stuck behind the Stalkers, and that's the saving grace at the moment for a Clem that turns around to kill a few Stalkers. Another Nova available will connect. The Stalkers now blink onto the side, so that the Archons are made room for. And now with Zealot reinforcements, ShaDoWn is kicking Clem's ass here.
I think he's very close to saving it. He has 11 Stalkers on the way that he just walked in at home. One Disruptor does get picked off, but the Archons, there are no more goals. So the Archons are actually very tanky. Clem is in all sorts of trouble, and it takes a miracle to hang on here. Against this army, maybe he could, but there is a War Prism in the mix too. 11 extra Stalkers are about to show up from the top side, and I actually think we have another enormous upset on our hands here in the DreamHack Masters Europe Regionals, as ShaDoWn is about to take out Clem 2-0, Cats.
A Clem that is in such great form right now, especially in this matchup. I mean, that he has looked like impossible right now. To Clem's credit, I suppose he has been playing as the overdog, right? Like, he hasn't been playing ShaDoWn in this series, in my opinion, as if ShaDoWn was his equal. But ShaDoWn very much showing him that he needs to take risks against them, that he can't just sit back and play as safe as he wants to play, because he's gonna make him pay for it.
StarCraft 2 is a game of execution, but on strategy you can definitely get a lot done. In game 1, the hidden base really making all the difference, and here in game 2, it just felt that Clem had a bit of a misread, expected ShaDoWn not to play as macro-oriented as he did, and Clem definitely put himself pretty far behind into the mid-game. It wasn't over by any means, but yeah, ShaDoWn is showing us that he doesn't need to be cheeky or aggressive, that he's also very capable of being strong on 4 or 5 bases, landed great disruptors. At this point, I would like to see him maybe run into the natural. We have so many basic units. We don't want to give Clem the chance to max out, because if Clem does get closer to maxing out, well, Clem's army is going to be way bigger than the army of ShaDoWn. He needs to go, Cats. Even a bad fight here is a good fight, but he needs to go for this orbital. He needs to trade. That's what Zealots and Stalkers are for.
Yeah, and here we go. I mean, the orbital is low, but ShaDoWn with a few misclicks. I mean, he's got to be shaking right now. That this will be the second disruptor that gets caught out in the open and kind of dies for free. However, here's the blink forward, and ShaDoWn still has a lot. Clem is trying to do what he can to hang on, and man, he is kind of hanging on here.
Yeah, but during this, in the bottom right side, though, there is good stuff happening for ShaDoWn. Zealots and DTs have picked off a couple of SCVs there, but more importantly, will prevent Clem from dropping any mules there. And Clem needs his hands on mules at this point, because he is nowhere near maxed out. He's got a somewhat powerful army, and is setting up a little drop towards the top left, realizing that just defending is not going to cut it. But losing the orbital just makes things go from bad to worse. ShaDoWn is rich, ShaDoWn has vision, and I have a hard time believing that he's going to fall apart against 8 Marines in the top side.
Yeah, especially not with that run by that you were just talking about. I mean, Clem's economy is shattered. He is doing whatever he can. I mean, the Wonder Kid, he goes with a medevac, not even full of Marines that are half HP, and they're going to find themselves a little bounty here in 13 probes as they pick up and try to look for more, but it's going to be difficult to find. ShaDoWn is just going to, you know, kind of just tie his shoes here and then go and turn around to end the game.
Yep. You don't want to give Clem too much time, though, because the army of Clem is actually somewhat big. It's nowhere near as big as the army of ShaDoWn, but ShaDoWn was very, very, very heavy on the gateway units. I'm happy to see that he's got a few more disruptors out now, and he's even sneaking out another Colossus. I think that's very important. But we don't want to let Clem max out while we are walking around with 23 Zealots and 24 Stalkers, because that is like 90 army supply of the most basic gateway units. And that is good if the Terran has nothing, but if the Terran has a lot of Marines and a lot of Marauders, you don't want to have like 120 supply of gateway units.
Yeah, there is a lot of disruptors now added to the mix. A Colossus that's going to be very difficult to answer, right? Clem doesn't really have the economy to remake Vikings easily. That's a huge stim onto the rest of his army now as he tries to hold up the ramp. However, ShaDoWn is going to trickle on through, and with the blink forward, it looks like he might just have enough. Here come the rest of the Novas to force the Marines back, and that means that the Marines are not fighting, and ShaDoWn will close the upset with a 2-0.